The city of Chicago wore winter like a cruel disguise. Skyscrapers glittered with frost, streets lay buried under layers of snow, and the air carried the bite of something both beautiful and merciless. It was a season that tested the skin, the spirit, and sometimes the heart. Claire Morgan was used to braving storms, both in the courtroom and outside of it. Tonight was no exception. She stepped out of the Cook County courthouse into the howling night, clutching her wool coat tighter as flakes of snow clung to her dark hair. The glow of the courthouse lights faded quickly behind her, swallowed by the shadows of downtown. The streets smelled of salt and exhaust, snowplows rumbling in the distance. Her heels clicked against icy pavement as she made her way toward her car. She had won another case that afternoon, a violent offender taken off the streets. Reporters had gathered on the steps, firing questions about her strategies, her record. She had brushed them off with the cool detachment she was known for. In court, she was a blade, precise, unforgiving, but now, with no cameras, no judge, no opponent, Claire allowed herself to exhale. The silence of her car was almost too much. She glanced at the empty passenger seat, a reflex after all these years, and the ache returned like it always did, once. That seat had belonged to David. She gripped the steering wheel tighter, forcing the memory away. 16 years had not dulled the pain of abandonment. If anything, time had sharpened it into something sharper, crueler. She had built her life on the ruins he left, and she had sworn never to let those ruins define her. Again, the drive home carried her past neighborhoods wrapped in holiday lights. Families gathered around glowing windows, children's laughter spilling faintly into the cold air. Claire turned up the radio to drown out the sound. Her boys would be waiting. The apartment she shared with her sons was modest by Chicago standards, 2 bedrooms, a cramped kitchen, a living room that doubled as a dining area. It was not luxury, but it was theirs, and Claire had built it with her own 2 hands. Mum. Noah's voice greeted her the moment she stepped through the door. He bounded toward her, all tousled hair and wide eyes, clutching a Lego figure in one hand. Look, I finished it. It's the police station. Ethan helped a little, but I did most of it. Claire smiled, kneeling to kiss his cheek. It looks perfect, sweetheart. You'll be an architect one day. Behind him, Ethan sat slouched at the dining table, earbuds in, hood drawn over his head. His notebook lay open but barely touched. The glow from his phone lit his face in shifting colors. Homework? Claire asked, shrugging off her coat. Almost Ethan muttered, without looking up. Noah tugged at her sleeve, eager for attention. Can we have hot chocolate tonight? Like the kind with marshmallows? Maybe, she said, brushing his hair back. If your brother finishes his work. Ethan rolled his eyes. I'll do it later. Not later, Claire countered firmly. Now, the words hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Ethan's shoulders stiffened. Noah looked between them, sensing the tension without fully understanding. It was their rhythmathon, bristling, Claire pushing, Noah trying to stitch them back together. Claire hated how often it felt like her home was balanced on the fragile line between holding together and breaking apart. That night, after tucking Noah into bed, Claire lingered in the doorway of Ethan's room. He sat at his desk, tapping a pencil against a blank page. Do you need help? She asked. He didn't answer right away. Finally, he muttered, Why do you even care? You're always too busy. The words cut deeper than he realized. Claire swallowed hard. I work so you can have a life, Ethan, a roof, food, a future, his jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the paper. I didn't ask for all of that. The argument died on her tongue. She closed the door softly, heart heavy. He was 16 now, and every day it felt like he was slipping further away. She thought of Noah's laughter, his endless faith in the world, in her. She thought of Ethan's growing silence, the wall he was building. And, unbidden, she thought of David, the man who had vanished when she needed him most. The man whose absence still echoed in her son's anger. Claire pressed her back against the closed door, staring at the ceiling. She whispered the truth she would never say aloud. I don't know if I can hold this together. 2 nights later, the knock came. Claire was still at work when the call came from her neighbor, panic lacing her words. She rushed home, heels slipping on icy sidewalks, only to find flashing red and blue lights washing over her block. Her heart slammed against her ribs. "Ma'am." "Stay back," an officer warned as she pushed through the crowd. But then she saw him, Ethan, standing beside a squad car, wrists cuffed, face pale and defiant. "No." Claire's scream cut through the air as she ran forward. "What's going on?" "He's just a boy." The officer blocked her path. "Your son was seen near the warehouse fire. Witnesses place him at the scene." "That's impossible," she snapped. "He was home, Mom." Ethan's voice cut her like glass. Low, flat, trembling. "I wasn't home." Claire froze, the world tilting. The warehouse fire had already dominated headlines. 2 injured, millions in damages. And now, her son entangled in it. As the officers guided him into the squad car, Ethan's eyes met hers. Anger burned there. Fear too. And behind it all something else. Secrets. That night, the apartment felt hollow. Noah slept upstairs, clutching his stuffed bear, blissfully unaware. Claire sat in the dark living room, Ethan's empty chair mocking her across the table. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number, she almost ignored it. But something made her answer. The voice on the other end froze her blood. Claire, her breath caught. 16 years had passed, yet she knew it instantly. "David," there was silence, then a low confession. "He's in trouble, Ethan. Let me help." Claire's grip tightened on the phone. The man who had destroyed her life was suddenly back, dragging shadows she had spent years burying, and worse, he sounded like he knew more than she ever could. The silence after David's voice was unbearable. Claire gripped the phone so hard, her knuckles whitened. "You have no right," she whispered. "Not after all this time." "I didn't leave because I wanted to," David said. His tone was steady, but beneath it she could hear fatigue like a man who had been running for years. "And I didn't call because it would have put you and the boys in danger." Her chest tightened. "The boys." He said it so icily, as though he had been here to raise them, to see them grow. "You don't get to use that word," she spat. "You don't know what it means." "Claire," she hung up before he could say more. Her hand trembled, but she forced herself to sit still, to breathe. Outside, the snow thickened, covering the city in a deceptive peace. Sleep refused to come. Claire lay awake, the glow of the street lamp spilling through the blinds. Memories crept in, uninvited. She saw David as he had been at 25, reckless grin, dark hair that fell into his eyes, a charm that had made her heart race. She remembered late nights in their tiny apartment, him sketching designs on napkins while she pored over law books. They had built dreams together, fragile but bright. And she remembered the night he disappeared. No fight, no explanation. Just an empty closet, a note with 2 words. "I'm sorry," she had screamed into the silence, shattered by the betrayal. For months, she had replayed every conversation, searching for clues. Then came the bills, the pregnancy test, the long nights of doubt. She had carried Ethan alone, raised him through fevers and tantrums, balanced law school with midnight feedings. David had been gone through it all. Now, 16 years later, he was back, and Ethan, the boy who bore his face, was in handcuffs. The next morning, Claire's office felt colder than usual. Papers lay scattered across her desk, but she couldn't focus. She stared out at the snow-covered skyline of Chicago, its steel towers piercing the grey clouds. Her paralegal knocked softly. "Ms. Morgan." The police report came through. Claire snatched it from her hands, scanning quickly. Ethan had been seen near the warehouse minutes before the fire started. Witnesses claimed he was with other teens, but none were named. No physical evidence tied him yet, but suspicion was enough. Her heart sank. If this escalated, Ethan could face charges that would ruin his future. She pressed her palms to her temples. "I can't let this happen." "I won't," but in the pit of her stomach, she knew David was right. If he knew something about the people behind the fire, she might need him. The thought made her sick. That night, the snow fell heavier. The city seemed swallowed by white silence. Claire arrived home late to find Noah asleep on the couch, clutching his stuffed bear. She tucked a blanket around him, her heart aching at his innocence. Ethan's door was closed, music leaking faintly from inside. She hesitated, then knocked. "Go away, Ethan. We need to talk." The door opened a crack. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw set. "About what? About how you don't trust me? Or about how he called you?" Claire froze. "You heard." "I'm not deaf, Mom." His voice cracked, half anger, half pain. "So what now? He shows up after 16 years and suddenly he's the hero who saves me." Her throat tightened. "He is not a hero. Don't ever think that." Ethan's lips twisted into something bitter. "Then why are you scared? If he's nothing, why are you shaking?" The door slammed in her face. She stood there in the hallway, trembling. Her son saw too much. He had inherited that from David, the ability to cut through her defenses with a single look. Later that night, Claire sat at the kitchen table, the clock ticking past midnight. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. She stared at the phone, half hoping, half dreading it would ring again. When the knock came at the door, she jumped, slow, steady, inevitable. She rose, each step heavier than the last. She opened the door and there he was. David Moore. Snow clung to his coat, his hair damp from the storm. His eyes locked on hers, filled with something she couldn't name, regret, maybe, or desperation. "Claire," he said quietly, her breath caught. For a heartbeat, the years fell away. The young man she had loved flickered in his features. Then reality slammed back. She gripped the door tighter. "You shouldn't have come." "I had no choice," he said. "They're watching him, watching Ethan. If we don't act now, he'll pay for mistakes that aren't his." Her stomach churned. "You're not dragging my son into your world." David's jaw tightened. "He's already in it." Behind her, a soft voice broke the standoff. "Mom, who's at the door?" Noah stood in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. His small figure framed by the glow of the lamp. David's gaze shifted, and for the first time in 16 years. He looked at the child he had never met, Something in his face broke. "Noah," he whispered. Claire's heart pounded as her youngest son stepped closer, curious, and in that fragile instant, she knew the past she had tried to bury was clawing its way back. Snow clung to David's shoulders as he stood motionless in the doorway, his breath forming small clouds in the bitter Chicago air. For a long moment, he and Claire stared at each other, 16 years of silence pressing between them like an iron wall. Noah's small voice broke that silence. "Mum, who is he?" Claire's heart lurched. She wanted to shield her son, to push David back into the storm and lock the past outside. But Noah's wide eyes were fixed on the man at the door, curiosity softening into something else, something frighteningly close to recognition. David crouched slightly, his gaze softening in a way that Claire had almost forgotten he could. His voice caught. He swallowed, then forced the words out. "I'm your dad." The word hung in the air like a forbidden spell. Noah blinked, his brow furrowed, lips parting as if to test the sound. "Dad." Claire's pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to scream no, to tell her son the truth that this man had vanished before Noah was even born, that he hadn't earned that title. But before she could speak, Noah's expression shifted. His face lit up with innocent wonder, the kind of wonder only a child untouched by betrayal could still feel. "You came back," Noah whispered, and before Claire could stop him, he ran forward. David's arms opened instinctively. The boy flung himself into his chest, small arms circling his waist. David's breath shuddered as he held his son for the first time, his hands trembling against the boy's back. "I missed so much," he whispered into Noah's hair. His throat ached, eyes burning. Claire's nails dug into the doorframe. The sight tore her apart. Her youngest son embracing the man who had shattered her life, the man she had worked so hard to erase from their story. "Enough," she snapped, stepping forward. She pulled Noah back, gently but firmly. "Go to bed, sweetheart." "But Mum, now." Her tone left no room for argument. Noah's shoulders slumped. He cast one last glance at David before trudging toward his room, dragging his stuffed bear along the floor. When he was gone, Claire turned back to David, her eyes like steel. "You had no right." David straightened, his jaw tight. He deserved to know. "You don't get to decide what my children deserve." "Our children," he corrected. The words sharp, Claire's breath caught. Rage boiled in her chest. "Don't you dare use that word. You forfeited that right the day you disappeared." David flinched, but he didn't back down. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. You think I haven't hated myself every day since, but I had no choice. If I'd stayed, you and Ethan would have been targets. I did what I thought would keep you safe. Safe." Claire laughed bitterly, though tears stung her eyes. "You think abandoning us kept us safe? Do you know what it was like, David? Do you know how many nights I stayed awake, wondering how to pay the bills, wondering how to explain to Ethan why his father was gone? You left me to drown, and you call that protection?" David's hands clenched into fists at his sides. His voice dropped. "Claire, you don't understand. There are things I can't tell you. Not yet. But you need to believe me when I say Ethan's in danger. That fire wasn't random. He was there for a reason. And the people behind it, they don't stop until they get what they want." Claire froze. The mention of Ethan cut through her fury like a blade. Her mind flashed to the look in her son's eyes as the police led him away in fear, and that shadow of secrecy. "You know something," she said slowly. David hesitated, then nodded. I know who started that fire, and I know why they wanted Ethan there. Her heart pounded. Then tell me, he shook his head. Not here, not like this. It's not just about Ethan. It's about all of us. The words chilled her more than the winter storm outside. Upstairs, Ethan leaned against his bedroom door, listening. His earbuds dangled uselessly around his neck. His phone forgotten in his hand. He had heard every word, and the sound of his father's voice, the father he claimed he didn't care about, stirred something deep inside him. Something he didn't want to feel, because mixed with the anger and betrayal was a dangerous flicker of hope. Morning came grey and heavy. Snow had piled against the windowsills overnight, muting the usual hum of the city. Inside the small apartment, warmth from the heater battled the chill that seeped through old walls. Claire stood at the stove, pouring batter onto the skillet. Pancakes hissed as they hit the heat, the sweet smell filling the kitchen. Cooking was one of the few ways she found calm, though today her hands trembled as she flipped the cakes. She heard footsteps behind her. Noah padded in, still in his pajamas, hair sticking up in every direction. His eyes lit up when he saw the plates. Pancakes, he exclaimed, climbing onto a chair. Claire forced a smile. Only because it's Saturday. Before she could sit, another figure entered. David Dott. The room froze. His presence seemed to shrink the space, the weight of 16 years pressing against the narrow walls. He looked out of place in her kitchen, like a ghost intruding where he no longer belonged. Noah's face, however, lit up again. Dad, you're still here. Claire nearly dropped the spatula. Noah, she warned sharply, eat your breakfast. David glanced at her, something unreadable in his eyes, before turning back to his son. Morning, champ. Noah beamed, chattering about his Lego project and a cartoon he wanted to watch later. The innocence of his voice made the air almost bearable, but only almost. Then Ethan walked in. His hoodie was pulled low, eyes dark from a night without sleep. The moment he saw David sitting at the table, his jaw clenched. You're still here, he said flatly. Claire stepped quickly between them. Eat your breakfast, Ethan. But Ethan's glare never left his father. Why? So we can all play happy family. You think one night makes up for 16 years? David's voice stayed calm, though his hands tightened around his mug. I don't expect it to, but I'm not leaving this time. Good, Ethan snapped. Then you'll be here to watch Mum throw you out. Noah's fork clattered against his plate. Stop fighting. Please. His small voice cracked, tears brimming. I don't like it when you fight. Silence fell. Claire closed her eyes, her chest aching. She crouched beside Noah, smoothing his hair. It's okay, sweetheart. Nobody's fighting, but everyone knew that was a lie. After breakfast, David asked Claire for a word in private. She resisted, but his eyes told her he wouldn't back down. They stood in the narrow hallway, voices low. I know you don't trust me, David said. You have every reason not to. But the people who set that warehouse fire, they're the same people I got tangled with years ago. That's why I left. They threatened you, Claire. You and Ethan. Her stomach twisted. So you just disappeared. No explanation. Do you have any idea what that did to us? I thought cutting ties would keep you safe. His voice broke slightly. I was wrong. And now they're circling back, using Ethan to send me a message. Claire's blood ran cold. "You're saying my son is bait?" "Yes," David said. "And if I don't deal with them, they'll destroy him. Just like they destroyed everything else." Her hands shook. She wanted to slam the door in his face again, to end this nightmare before it dragged her boys deeper. But then she remembered Ethan's expression by the squad car. Fear and secrets. If David was right, walking away wasn't an option. That afternoon, Ethan disappeared into his room, blasting music loud enough to shake the walls. Noah played in the living room, occasionally sneaking glances at David with the fascination only a child could hold. David sat quietly by the window, watching snow fall against the glass. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine what it would have been like to stay, to be here for birthdays, for scraped knees, for ordinary mornings with pancakes and laughter instead of tension. The ache of those lost years nearly crushed him, but beneath the ache a fire burned. This time, he told himself, he would not run. This time, he would fight. The days that followed felt like walking across thin ice. Every sound, every look, every word threatened to crack the fragile surface beneath their feet. Claire tried to maintain a sense of normalcy at school. Runs, case files, dinners at the small wooden table, but the tension never left. David's presence in the apartment was a constant weight. He slept on the couch, his coat folded as a pillow, his boots lined neatly by the door, as though he expected to be cast out at any moment. Ethan avoided him completely, slipping out early, coming home late, his eyes always daring Claire to stop him. Noah, on the other hand, hovered near David with relentless curiosity, peppering him with questions. Do you like pizza or burgers better? Can you throw a football really far? Why don't you have a house? Can't you stay here forever? Each innocent question stabbed Claire in ways Noah could never understand. One evening, the storm outside grew so fierce that even the street lamps were swallowed by white. Snow lashed against the windows as the family sat in the living room. Noah lay on the rug with his Legos. Ethan sat hunched on the couch, hood up, earbuds in, pretending not to listen. Claire worked at the table. Legal papers spread around her. David finally broke the silence. "There's something you need to know," he said. His voice low. Claire didn't look up. "I don't want your stories, David. This isn't a story." He leaned forward, eyes fixed on hers. "It's the reason I left. The reason they won't let Ethan go, that caught Ethan's attention." His earbuds slipped from his ears. David exhaled slowly. 16 years ago, I worked for a company that wasn't what it seemed. On the surface, we were in logistics, but beneath, we moved things, money, weapons, people. I wanted out, but the deeper I got, the harder it was to leave. And then I met you. Claire's chest tightened. Memories of their whirlwind romance flooded back the late nights, the stolen kisses, the plans they scribbled on scraps of paper. "I thought I could walk away from that life," David continued. "But when I tried, they made it clear. If I didn't cooperate, they'd come after you. After Ethan, you were pregnant, Claire. I couldn't risk it, so I disappeared." Her hands trembled on the papers. "You think leaving us was protection? You think vanishing without a word saved us?" "It kept you off their radar," David insisted, "at least for a while. But now," his eyes flicked toward Ethan, "now they're using him to pull me back." Ethan's face paled. He stood abruptly. "You're lying." "No," David said firmly. You were seen at that warehouse because someone wanted you there. Someone sent for you. Ethan's fists clenched. I wasn't. He stopped, his jaw tightening. Claire rose from her chair, heart pounding. Ethan, what do you know? Nothing, he snapped, shoving his hands into his pockets. Don't lie to me. Her voice broke. He looked away, his silence louder than any confession. Noah looked up from the rug, confusion clouding his young face. Ethan, what's going on? Why are they saying those things? Stay out of it, Noah. Ethan barked, harsher than he intended. Noah flinched, his Lego figure slipping from his hands. Tears filled his eyes. I was just asking. David's voice thundered, protective. Don't talk to your brother like that. Ethan whirled on him, fury blazing. You don't get to tell me what to do. You're not my father. The room froze. David's face went pale, his jaw tightening against the blow. Claire's chest ached at the sight, torn between anger at David and the unbearable pain in Ethan's words. Noah scrambled up, his small arms wrapping protectively around his brother's waist. Don't be mad at Ethan, he pleaded. He's just scared. Ethan's breath hitched, his anger crumbling at his brother's touch. He pulled Noah close, holding him tightly, his face buried in the boy's hair, and in that fragile tableau to brothers clinging together, a mother torn apart and a father frozen in regret. The past refused to stay buried. That night. The apartment felt like a battlefield after the smoke had cleared, suffocating but full of unseen wounds. Ethan had locked himself in his room, music pounding through the thin walls like a heartbeat of rage. Noah had cried himself to sleep, curled up with his stuffed bear. Claire stood in the kitchen, hands braced against the counter, staring at the stack of dishes she hadn't touched. Her reflection in the dark window stared back at her, tired eyes, lines etched by years of struggle, strength that was only half real behind her. David's footsteps approached. Don't, she said, voice low but sharp. Don't try to explain. Don't try to justify. I wasn't going to, he said quietly. He leaned against the doorway, his shadow stretching across the linoleum. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. She laughed bitterly. Now you care. His jaw tightened. I've always cared. Don't you dare say that. She whirled on him, eyes blazing. You don't get to show up after 16 years and pretend you carried any of this with me. You weren't there for Ethan's first steps. You weren't there when he broke his arm falling off his bike. You weren't there the night I almost lost him to pneumonia. I sat by his bed, praying he'd breathe through the night, while you, her voice cracked. While you were God knows where. David's face twisted with pain. I know, and I hate myself for every second of it. Not enough, she snapped. Not enough to come back. I couldn't, he said hoarsely. If I'd come back too soon, they would have killed you. Killed him. You think I chose to disappear? Every day I wanted to walk through that door, but I knew the second I did, I'd be signing your death warrant. Claire shook her head, tears brimming. You should have trusted me. We could have faced it together. But you didn't. You left me to raise him alone, to carry the weight of your choices. For a moment, silence. Only the hum of the refrigerator and the muffled bass from Ethan's room. Then David said, softly, and I regret it every single day. Her shoulders sagged, the fire draining from her. She turned back to the sink, whispering, regret doesn't fix anything. Later. Long after Claire had retreated to her room, David sat alone on the couch. The apartment was dark, the only light spilling from the street lamp outside. Small footsteps padded into the living room. Noah, he climbed onto the couch beside David, clutching his bear. His voice was small, hesitant. "Why does Ethan hate you?" David froze. He had no answer that a child should ever have to hear. "I don't know," he said finally, his voice rough. "Maybe because I wasn't here when he needed me." "Why not?" Noah pressed. David stared at his hands. "Because I made mistakes. Big ones. And I thought leaving would keep you safe." Noah frowned, trying to make sense of it. "But you're here now." "Yes," David whispered. "I'm here now." Noah leaned against him, eyelids heavy. "Then maybe Ethan will forgive you. Someday." David's chest tightened. He wrapped an arm around his youngest son, holding him as though he could make up for all the years lost. But upstairs, another door creaked open. Ethan slipped silently out into the night, hood pulled over his head, his phone glowing faintly in his hand. He wasn't going to wait for his father's explanations. He had his own secrets to confront, and the storm outside was only getting worse. The city was cloaked in white silence, but beneath the stillness, Chicago's underbelly never slept. In alleys dusted with snow, deals were struck in whispers. Debts collected with fists, and shadows stretched long under the dim glow of street lamps. Ethan moved quickly, his hood pulled low, breath puffing in sharp clouds. His sneakers slipped on the icy pavement, but he didn't slow. His phone buzzed in his pocket. One new message: "Meet at the corner of Ashland and 35th. Don't be late." He cursed under his breath. Every part of him screamed to turn back, but he couldn't. Not after what had happened at the warehouse. Not with the threat still fresh in his ears. He reached the meeting point, a boarded-up laundromat with shattered windows. A car idled nearby, headlights cutting through the snow. The passenger window rolled down. A man leaned out, face shadowed, cigarette glowing between his fingers. "You're late," the man growled. "I had to get out of the house." Ethan muttered. The man smirked. "Problems with Daddy?" Ethan's stomach twisted. "He doesn't matter." "Oh, he matters," the man said darkly. "More than you know." Ethan shoved his hands into his pockets, hiding the tremor in his fingers. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing much," the man said casually. "Just a little cooperation. Be our eyes, our ears. Stay close to him. We'll take care of the rest." Ethan froze. "You want me to spy on him?" The man flicked ash into the snow. "Call it balancing the scales. He owes us, and if he doesn't pay," his eyes glinted, "you and your pretty little family will." Ethan's throat tightened. Rage and fear tangled inside him. He wanted to scream, to fight, to run, but he couldn't risk it. Not with Noah. "I'll think about it," he muttered. "You don't have time to think," the man snapped. "You've got one chance. Don't screw it up." The window rolled up, the car pulling away, tires hissing on wet snow. Ethan stood frozen in the cold, the weight of a trap closing around him. Back at the apartment, Claire jolted awake. The hallway was too quiet. She padded toward Ethan's room, pushing the door open empty. Her stomach dropped. "Ethan?" She whispered into the silence. No answer. She checked the kitchen, the bathroom, the living room, nothing. Panic clawed at her chest. Then she saw David, sitting upright on the couch, pulling on his boots. "He's gone," Claire said, her voice breaking. "I know." David's tone was grim, steady. I heard the door. She grabbed her coat. We have to find him. David stood, meeting her eyes. Claire, he's not just wandering. They're pulling him in. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Then do something. She snapped, tears stinging her eyes. Find him before they do. David didn't waste another word. He grabbed his coat, his eyes hard as steel, for the first time in 16 years. They moved as if united not as lovers, not even as friends, but as parents bound by fear for their child, and outside, the storm swallowed them whole. The snowstorm had turned the city into a maze of white. Streets were nearly deserted, save for the occasional taxi crawling cautiously through the drifts. Storefronts glowed faintly in the dark, neon signs flickering against the curtain of falling snow. Claire pulled her scarf higher around her face as she and David trudged down Ashland Avenue. Their breath rose in ragged plumes, boots crunching on the ice. Do you know where he'd go? She demanded. David's jaw clenched. If they're pulling him in, it'll be someplace quiet. Somewhere they control. Warehouses, alleys, abandoned shops. They use kids because they're easy to scare, easy to manipulate. Her stomach turned. And you know this because I used to be one of them, he said, voice flat. The admission hit her like a slap. She stopped in her tracks, snow stinging her face. So it's true. You weren't just mixed up in shady deals. You were part of them, he turned, meeting her eyes through the swirling storm. Yes, I was. And I've regretted it every day since. Her hands balled into fists. You destroyed us, David. You destroyed me. And now you're dragging Ethan into the same hell. No, he said fiercely. I'm trying to pull him out. I won't let him make my mistakes. For a long moment, they stared at each other, snowflakes catching in their hair, breath misting between them. Claire's anger burned, but beneath it was something more dangerous, fear that he might be right. Finally, she turned away. Then you'd better prove it. Hours later, the apartment door creaked open. Ethan slipped inside, his hoodie soaked with snow, sneakers squeaking on the floor. He froze when he saw David waiting in the dark. Where were you? David's voice was low, controlled but edged with fire. Out, Ethan muttered. David rose slowly from the couch. Don't play games with me. I know who you were with. Ethan's eyes flashed. You don't know anything about me. I know enough, David shot back. I know they're using you to get to me. Ethan's face hardened, his jaw set like stone. Then maybe you should have stayed gone, because all you've done is make everything worse. Claire appeared in the hallway, Noah rubbing his eyes behind her. Ethan, she whispered, her voice breaking. Talk to us, please. But Ethan shook his head, retreating toward his room. There's nothing to say. The door slammed, the sound echoing through the apartment like a gunshot. Noah sniffled, clinging to Claire's hand. Why is he so mad, Mum? Claire swallowed hard, pulling him close. Her eyes flicked to David, whose shoulders slumped in the shadows. For the first time, she saw not the man who had abandoned her, but a man haunted by ghosts he couldn't escape. And she knew this was only the beginning. The past had returned to their doorstep, and it had no intention of leaving quietly. The apartment no longer felt like a home. It felt like a house made of glass, fragile, ready to shatter at the slightest touch. Mornings were the worst. Claire tried to hold on to routine's coffee brewing, Noah's backpack by the door, Ethan's books stacked on the table, but beneath the rhythm, silence reigned. Ethan barely spoke, retreating into his hoodie, his headphones, his muttered one-word answers. He avoided David entirely, moving like a shadow through the apartment. The only time he showed fire was when Noah asked about their father, then his voice would rise, sharp and bitter, leaving Noah wide-eyed and confused. Claire felt herself pulled in two directions. One moment she wanted to slam the door on David, to erase him again. The next, she wanted to demand answers, to claw the truth out of him until there was nothing left to hide. But in every moment, one fear consumed her. Ethan, the boy, was slipping further and further out of reach, pulled by forces she could no longer control. One evening, Claire found David on the balcony, smoking. The snow had eased, leaving the city glazed in ice. Lights reflected in the frozen streets, a kaleidoscope of color against the black sky. "I didn't know you smoked," she said coldly. "I didn't," he replied, flicking ash into the wind. "Not until recently." She folded her arms. "Old habits for old ghosts." His jaw tightened. "Something like that." They stood in silence for a while, the cold air biting their skin. Then Claire said, "He hates you, David. Ethan hates you so much, it scares me." David's shoulders sagged. "He has every right to, but hate eats people alive," Claire whispered, "and I'm watching it eat my son." David turned, his eyes dark. "That's why we have to act. Before they do." She frowned. "Who?" "The men I worked for," David said. His voice was low, urgent. "They're not small-time thugs, Claire. They have money, power, reach. If they've marked Ethan, they won't stop. They'll use him, break him, or worse. And the longer I stay here, the more danger I bring." Claire's chest tightened. "So, what are you saying? That you should leave again?" His gaze locked onto hers, fierce and unyielding. "No, I'm saying this time I stay and fight." The words hung in the icy air. Claire searched his face, looking for lies. But all she found was determination wrapped in regret. Inside, Noah curled on the couch, sketching superheroes in his notebook. David peeked in as Claire passed, and Noah looked up, eyes bright. "Dad, look. I drew you." He held up the paper-crude drawing of a man with a cape, standing tall against a dark sky. David's throat tightened. "You made me a hero." "You are," Noah said simply. From the hallway, Ethan scoffed. "You've got the wrong guy, Noah. Heroes don't run away." The room went still. Noah shrank into the couch, clutching his notebook. David rose slowly, facing Ethan. "I made mistakes. More than you'll ever know. But don't you dare take that out on your brother." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Don't tell me what to do." Claire stepped between them, her voice sharp. "Enough. Both of you." But Ethan's glare never left David. His eyes burned with years of resentment, unspoken questions, and something darker — fear. And in that moment, Claire realized her family wasn't just fractured, it was breaking. Later that week, the storm finally broke, leaving the city glazed in ice. The streets glittered like shattered glass beneath the street lamps. Claire stayed late at the office, drowning herself in briefs and case files, but her mind kept drifting home to Ethan's silence, to Noah's questions, to David's shadow. Meanwhile, David walked the back alleys of Chicago's South Side, his collar pulled high against the cold. He wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had a way of finding him. A figure stepped out of the shadows. A man in a leather jacket, face scarred, eyes sharp as knives. Well, well, the man drawled. If it isn't more. Thought you were dead. David's muscles tensed. Maybe I should have been. The man smirked. Boss isn't happy you crawled back. You owe us, and now your boy's paying the price. David's chest clenched. Leave him out of this. Not my call, the man sneered. Kid's useful. Gets under your skin. And if you don't play along. He leaned closer, his breath reeking of smoke. We'll carve the lesson into him. David's fists itched to strike, but he forced himself still. Tell your boss I'm done running. If he wants me, he knows where to find me. The man chuckled, vanishing into the dark. Careful, more. You might get exactly what you ask for. Back at the apartment, Claire unlocked Ethan's phone. He had left it charging on the counter while showering. She hated herself for the intrusion, but fear outweighed guilt. Her stomach turned when she saw the messages. Meet tonight. Don't tell him. Keep us updated. Her vision blurred with rage. She nearly dropped the phone when Ethan emerged, towel slung around his shoulders. What are you doing? He demanded, eyes narrowing. Claire held up the screen, her voice trembling. Who are these people, Ethan? What are you involved in? His face paled, then hardened. You went through my phone. Are you serious? Don't you dare turn this on me. She snapped. You're playing with fire, and it's going to burn all of us. Ethan grabbed the phone, shoving it into his pocket. You don't understand. Then make me understand, she pleaded. Tell me the truth before it's too late. But Ethan only shook his head and retreated to his room, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. In the corner of the living room, Noah had been watching silently. His wide eyes shimmered with tears. Mum, he whispered, why is Ethan lying? Claire's heart broke. She pulled him close, smoothing his hair. He's scared, sweetheart. That's all, Noah sniffled. But I'll protect him. I always protect him. Her arms tightened around him, her voice cracking. Oh, baby. You shouldn't have to. She looked toward the closed door of Ethan's room, fear clawing at her chest. Her family was splintering faster than she could hold it together, and in the shadows of the city, something far worse was closing in. The storm may have passed, but inside the apartment the air was heavier than ever. Words had become weapons, silenced the battlefield. Ethan barely came home anymore. When he did, it was only to grab food, shower, and vanish again. He stopped answering Claire's questions, stopped responding to Noah's pleas to play, and most of all, he refused to even look at David. Claire tried to hold it together, but every day she felt the threads slipping through her fingers. She had spent years building walls strong enough to survive alone, and now, ironically, with David back, those walls were crumbling. One night, she snapped. You're not going out tonight, she told Ethan, blocking the door. He scoffed. Try and stop me, Ethan, please, Claire begged, her voice shaking. If you keep this up, you'll end up in jail or worse. I can't lose you. You already lost me, he said flatly. His eyes flicked past her, landing on David standing in the kitchen doorway. And don't think he can save me either. The words cut like knives. Claire reached for his arm, but he pulled away. The door slammed behind him, echoing through the hall. Claire's chest heaved. David, do something. He's your son too. David's face was pale, drawn tight. I'll find him. You better, she whispered, tears spilling. Because if we lose him, I'll never forgive you." Ethan's footsteps crunched against the icy pavement as he hurried through the back streets. His phone buzzed with a single message. Warehouse, midnight, alone. He shoved the phone into his pocket, heart pounding. He hated himself for following their orders, but he had no choice. They knew too much. They knew about Noah if he didn't play along. His little brother would pay the price. Meanwhile, Noah stirred awake, the sound of the slamming door pulling him from sleep. He padded into the living room, rubbing his eyes. "Where's Ethan?" he asked. Claire knelt, pulling him close. "He just stepped out." "Go back to bed, sweetheart." But Noah's eyes narrowed in a way that startled her. "He's in trouble, isn't he?" Claire froze. Noah's voice was small, but steady, with none of the usual innocence. Before she could answer, David reappeared, pulling on his coat. "Stay with your mom, Noah. I'll bring him back." "No," Noah said suddenly, his fists clenched. "I'm coming too. He needs me." David crouched, looking his youngest son in the eye. "You're brave, Noah, braver than you should have to be. But this is too dangerous." Noah's lips trembled. "But I always protect him." David's chest tightened. He placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Then trust me to protect him this time." Reluctantly, Noah nodded, though his eyes filled with tears. As David stepped into the night, Claire stood at the door, her voice trembling. "If you don't bring him back safe, don't come back at all." The warehouse loomed at the edge of the south side like a carcass of steel and rust. Its windows were broken, its doors chained, but inside, faint light flickered. Snow crunched under David's boots as he approached, heart pounding with a rhythm he hadn't felt in years. The rhythm of a man walking back into the lion's den. He knew they'd be expecting him. Inside, the air reeked of gasoline and smoke. Shadows moved in the corners, men with hard faces and cold eyes. At the center stood Ethan, who'd pulled low, fists clenched at his sides. "Dad," Ethan spat the word like poison. "I told you not to follow me." David's chest constricted. "I'm not here to fight you, Ethan. I'm here to get you out." A voice echoed from the shadows. "No one leaves until debts are paid." A tall man stepped into the light. His suit was too fine for the grime of the warehouse, his smile too sharp to be friendly. The others moved around him like wolves circling prey. "More," the man drawled. 16 years, and you still don't understand. You don't get to walk away." David's fists clenched. "This isn't about me. Let the boy go." The man's smile widened. "Oh, but it is about him. Blood runs deep, David. We knew you'd come crawling the second we dangled him." He turned to Ethan, resting a hand on his shoulder. "And the boys got fire. We could use that." Ethan flinched but didn't pull away. His eyes flicked to David, filled with confusion, anger, and something dangerously close to fear. "Don't listen to him," David said firmly. "They'll use you, then throw you away. And you wouldn't." Ethan shot back. "You already did." The words cut deeper than any blade. David swallowed hard. "I made mistakes, but I will never sacrifice you." The man chuckled, snapping his fingers. Two thugs stepped forward, grabbing Ethan's arms. He struggled, cursing, but they held him fast. "Looks like the boy doesn't believe you," the man sneered. "So here's the choice, more. You come back to us, or we take him instead." David's pulse thundered. He had spent years running, years hiding. But now the price of his past stood before him in flesh and blood, his son's terrified face. I'll do it, David said hoarsely. Let him go, and I'll come back. Dad, no. Ethan shouted, thrashing against the men's grip, but the decision had been made. Back at the apartment, Claire couldn't sit still. The clock ticked louder with every second. Noah paced the living room, clutching his stuffed bear. They've been gone too long, he whispered. Claire knelt, cupping his face. We have to trust them. But deep down, she didn't trust anything, not David, not the city, not fate itself. When Noah suddenly bolted for the door, she barely caught him. Noah, where are you going? I have to find Ethan. Tears streaked his face. He needs me. Her arms wrapped around him, pulling him close. Sweetheart, listen to me. Running out there will only put you in danger too. But Noah's voice broke as he sobbed against her shoulder. I promised I'd always protect him, and now I can't. Claire held him tighter, her own tears falling silently. She didn't know who would come back through that door, if anyone would at all.